Hey guys, this is Tyler. I'm here with Mike as always.
Yep.
No change, no difference. This is going to be a little bit of a different episode. We're not recording. Mike is actually getting ready to go out of town, and he's been under the weather a little bit. And we had a request to film kind of a special episode anyway. So while Mike is out of commission, I invited my good friend Garrett to come join us and talk about a specific topic. Would you like to fill them in on what we're talking about, or would you like me to try to explain it?
We could tag team it if you want to.
Okay. Just like we do everything.
Yeah.
All right. So my understanding is that this is is it a paper, a project? Like what exactly are you turning in?
Well, I'm personally turning in a paper and a PowerPoint that relate to this specific topic.
Okay. So it's a project that he's been working on for, you said, most of the semester?
Most of the semester has been this specific topic, but it's been 3 different papers I've been writing about the topic.
Mm-hmm. So it's about the negative effects that violent video games have on people, society in general, stuff like that?
Yeah, just if video games do or do not cause violent actions within those who play the game.
Okay, so more specifically, it causes violence, it begets violence.
Yeah.
Okay. I wasn't sure whether it was specific to violent actions or whether it was more just like negative impulses in general.
Yeah, it was just violent actions is what my papers are mostly writing about.
So that brings it in a little bit more. I guess first of all, what's your opinion?
I personally don't think they do. I mean, I've done a lot of research over the semester, of course, and I still don't think they cause violent actions.
And it's kind of a weird thing because I've done, it's been a long time, but I've done research papers and stuff like that, and just for my own personal research before, into these kinds of studies. And, it's like, depending on which side they're trying to promote, you can find evidence for both sides. It's not hard to find people saying it does have negative impact, and there's people that are like, it doesn't have any sort of negative impact.
Exactly.
And it seems like, in my experience, most of the time the reason it comes up is because, unfortunately, it crops up because of some new, like, school shooting or some, like, horrible thing that happens in our society. And it turns out that, the shooter or the suicide or whomever was into some specific video game. Exactly. Whether it be, somebody was into Grand Theft Auto or somebody was into Doom or something like that. And then it's like that specific title and also just video games at large become an easy scapegoat for, it's because of video games. Video games caused it. But then you have just as many studies that say, that's not the sole cause. It's not the fact that they played video games doesn't have much bearing on the fact that they were violent people or disturbed people. Because when you dig into it, it's like these people also have a history of, I can't speak universally, but in my experience, it seems like whenever you really dig into the articles and the stories, it turns out that these people kind of had a predisposition toward mental health issues or a bad environment that they grew up in and things like that.
Exactly.
There were many contributing factors, and the least of which was the fact that they, played a video game once or something like that. And you said you've done a lot of research into this. Have you noticed that same trend?
That's the exact same thing I've been noticing, actually. And the reason that this is my topic for this paper is the reason this is different from the others is that I have to actively reach out to people and try to spread the word on why I don't think video games cause violence. And the reason you mentioned earlier about the media kind of playing it up as a scapegoat is kind of the reason I'm here, to try and prevent that from being the main focus and have people actually trying to figure out what the real issue is behind these things.
Yeah, which is why it's good that, you had a chance to sit down. Not that, we have a huge viewer base right now, but hopefully, a few people will watch and listen and get something out of it,
Yeah.
But yeah, and so in my personal experience, and I think I've noticed too, you and our playing habits tend to be different too. like you and I play a lot of games together and a lot of games that we both enjoy, but you tend more toward, I feel like, kind of like puzzles, like puzzle solving and platformers and things like that. And I tend more toward just anything, I guess. I'm less like specific. You know, I feel like I can always rely on you to be playing like the new Mario or, you know, Portal or something like that. Whereas, you know, I'm like, well, this new shooter just came out, so I'm playing that. And then, you know, 2 days later, I'm like, well, this new RPG came out, so I'm playing that. And then 2 days later, it's like, well, this new strategy game came out, so I'm playing that. You know, it's like, but I don't feel like I'm a violent person.
I don't think you are either.
I've never, you know, I've never felt like I had to like curb my impulses to do violent things or anything like that. But you know, just that's kind of just a personal take. I've noticed even within, especially at the school, you know, I work with, well, K through 5, but more specifically, I work during the day with 5th graders, and they all of them play games. I think they said in one of the studies I was reading a week or two back, they said that upwards of like 97% of children play video games in some capacity now. Yeah. Which, like, you know, even as few as like 5 years ago, that would have been like, you know, wow, that seems really high. But especially now that smart devices and connected devices are just in the hands of everyone, it's like anyone above the age of like, what, 6? You can pretty much assume has access to a tablet or a phone or something somewhere. And so they might not be playing the same games that we would have assumed. You know, if they had said 97% of kids like 10, 15 years ago, I would have been like, holy cow, you know, like, what are they playing? But now, you know, it's like whenever they say that 97% of kids are playing video games, it's like, okay, but are they actually playing like video games, or are they playing, you know, like Farmville or some equivalent, you know, like Stardew Valley on their tablet or something like that?
Just an app that requires like minimal input.
Yeah, or like the cookie clicker. They just sit there like tapping forever, stuff like that. Which that I feel like would make me violent. that's where my violent impulses would come in. I'm just sitting here like forever. But in them, it's more or less the same story. You know, the students that we have more behavioral issues with, the ones that lash out, the ones that are more prone to, I'm a little bit hesitant to say like strike their peers, because, you know, hopefully none of them try to strike their peers. You know, no, we don't want our kids like just walking up and like walloping some other kid in the face. But, you know, the instances where we've had, you know, fights or issues at the school, it normally either it ends up being students that have a history of those kinds of behavioral issues. And, you know, we've had both sides of the fence. We've had kids who are like, you know, hey, have you played, you know, the new Grand Theft Auto? And they're like 8. And I'm like, no, have you? You know, it's like, I shouldn't be surprised anymore, but I'm still a little bit surprised whenever I have like 7-year-olds telling me that, you know, they're playing the new Grand Theft Auto or the new Call of Duty or something like that. But, you know, we have just as many of those as we have students who are like, you know, no, we don't have money. We don't have any video games, you know? And so it's like, it doesn't feel like it skews one way or the other. And whenever they are lashing out, it doesn't feel like they're doing it because they just played, you know, whatever, Manhunt or something. It feels like they're doing it because they have something to prove, you know?
Yeah.
Students that might have a bad home life, or students that are struggling academically and they're embarrassed, you know, something like that. It never feels like, you know, oh, they're doing this because they just got back from playing Call of Duty and they're mad. There's no evidence that I've seen, even amongst like my, not like a sample group, I guess, you know, it's not like I'm sitting here just like observing their video game and behavioral patterns, but, you know, just like in my day-to-day routine working with, I mean, we've got something like 1,200 students at the school, and on top of 5 or 6 different 5th grade classes during the day, I have after school care, and so I work with 300 students from K all the way through 5th there, kindergarten through 5th there. And I have yet to notice any trends toward, like, oh, this one's playing on Friv. They're the violent ones.
Yeah, that was a lot to take in. But I see what you mean.
Yeah. And I don't know, too, you and I have very different, like, sample groups right now, because all the, most of the people I interact with are either, like, 11 years or younger, or they're all, like, adults.
Right.
I feel like the vast majority of the people in my line of duty, they're not like super into video games anyway. Like, we've got our few, you've got people like me and a few other people at the school who are into video games, but it feels like a lot of the teachers are like, no, video games are for the kids. They very much kind of, they view it as like something that their students do and they don't.
Okay.
And so, but, you're kind of in a different situation, because, even when we were in college, I was here. I was living with my parents through college and stuff like that. So I didn't get, like, the dorm life or kind of that social interaction. Have you noticed anything, like, at the college or with your peers or anything?
There is one person that's on my floor. I don't even know who it is. Every single night, I can recognize their voice. They're playing a video game, and then I hear a few curse words through the wall, and then I hear banging on, like, either a desk or a wall. He seems to be the most violent person I've seen play a game, but, that's just an outlier out of all the students on my floor.
Yeah, and even then, it's like, you hear that interaction, like, through the walls while they're gaming.
Exactly.
That doesn't necessarily translate to, like, you walk out of your dorm room and some, like, angry dude comes out, like, that game! And starts, like, punching kids,
Exactly. He's just, like, hitting his desk.
Yeah, he's like...
It's nothing, really.
He's frustrated at the game and he might lash out a little bit, but it doesn't translate into him thinking, I'm so mad at this game, I'm going to commit an act of terrorism, or something like that. That's not... The point being, I don't feel like there's any... I do think that video games can kind of rewire your brain a little bit, but not in the way that it makes them, incessantly violent or anything like that. I think that the biggest negative impact that video games have is that it kind of wires your brain for immediate gratification.
Yeah, exactly.
The thing I see with students is that their attention span is lower now. If they can get on a computer, they're more apt to do schoolwork and learn, even if they can do it, like, through some software. If they're not looking at a screen, they're checked out. It's like they need that gratification, they need that screen time, and if they don't have it, it's I think I don't want to say like it's causing kids to be ADHD, but it kind of creates some of those symptoms. They're so used to having that reward system in place and having things like right at the touch of a button all the time, that when they don't have that in place, it makes them a little bit stir crazy. They're less they have trouble developing socially as much.
Yeah.
Now that video games are becoming more and more prevalent, and just smart devices in general are becoming more and more prevalent.
I can see what you mean by that. Because I think...
and maybe that's a little bit off topic, but just... just in general, that's kind of the negative effect I see. But I don't feel like it makes them inherently like violent or it makes them lash out. I think, if anything, it just makes them less attentive.
I mean, I understand what you're talking about exactly, because I actually downloaded quite a few just mindless apps on my phone recently, and I've been just randomly playing them a bit, and I realize when I'm not doing much specifically, or even when I'm doing things, I tend to look down and start playing a game on my phone.
Yeah.
I can be in the middle of watching like an episode of Sherlock or something.
Yeah.
And I'm suddenly playing on my phone. I'm like, why am I doing this? Mm-hmm. So I've been trying to stop that more.
And everybody has those habits, like with you, it might be like the kind of the mindless games, where you're like hitting you're like hitting the ball with the puck, or
exactly.
Or playing cookie clicker or whatever the case may be. And for other people, it might be Instagram or Facebook or Twitter or, recipes. Some people that I know, like some people just sit there like looking up new foods and new like tweaking their current recipes and things. It's like
right.
Everybody kind of has their vice whenever they're on their smart devices, but I feel like regardless of what it is, everybody's kind of got like that go-to. If it's been more than 5 minutes, they're like, oh, I got to grab my phone and check Facebook, or oh, I got to grab my phone and check to make sure that my Tamagotchi hasn't died, or something like that. Whatever the case may be, and so I feel like that's a kind of a not unsettling, but kind of like the frustrating fact of our times. Yeah. Is that we're so used to being connected to our devices and our social media and our games and things at all times that it's hard to just even sit down like we're sitting down now and have a real conversation. Exactly. Without, and because even when we try to, I feel like more often than not we could be sitting at dinner, like talking like this, but somebody will have their phone out like talking but also like looking at their phone at the same time, or something. They're not fully in tune. But again, I think one of the things that I've read and that I kind of agree with is I think even games can be a little bit cathartic in that sense, in the fact that it can almost help to like curb those kinds of behaviors rather than cause them.
Yeah,
so people that might be in some sort of distress or have some sort of issues, when they have that kind of release, it can lessen those urges. They did a study. I don't remember who it was, but I was reading about a study that they did where they watched the ticks in like violent crime rates, just on any given day. And then they watched them at the release of like big name titles. So, they watched it for like Call of Duty, Red Dead Redemption 2, Grand Theft Auto 5, games like that over the span of like 5 years. They watched violent crime rates on a regular day and on like a AAA game release day. And what they found was that there's actually a downtick in violent crimes shortly after popular video games come out, because everybody's at home playing those games instead of doing violent things out in society. And it's not necessarily like firm proof of anything. It could be that it distracts them for a little bit, but then those games, make them, angry, or they feel like they need to go do something, or whatever. But the evidence that I've seen and the evidence that I've heard from, online sources and other research and stuff like that indicates to me that there's no real connection between video games and violent acts in society, and they can in fact reduce violent acts in society in some cases.
Yeah, that's the similar research I came across. The only thing I found for sure was that video games may cause like aggression, but that's very different from violence. I think it was a study by the APA or something like that.
It can cause aggression, and normally it's immediate. It's short term.
Yeah.
It's not like a sustained thing. It's something, where...
like you were saying,
the guy that gets mad in his dorm room and, throws his controller at his TV. And then, 5 minutes later, he's eating pizza and watching Dancing with the Stars.
Yeah, he's just fine after that.
Or whatever the case may be. Or maybe he just switches and he plays a game that's a little bit more calming, or whatever comes of that. But, and, I've seen that even I have seen that in my life. There are times where I'll be playing a game with my friends, and it's like, when you're playing Mario Kart and you get the blue shell, and then you're in first place, and all of a sudden you're in like 11th place, and like right at the end of the race, and everybody crosses the finish line, and you're just sitting there like, man, this is stupid. And you're just like kind of tossed on your controller, and you walk away for a few minutes, but then it's like, okay, I'm fine now. I was just mad because I lost, you know?
Exactly.
It's not like a sustained thing, and it's not like it happens and you go, you know, man, I am so mad that I am going to go do violent things in society, you know? It happens and you move on.
Exactly. I say exactly a lot right now. I'm sorry.
I think I talk. I think that's part of, you know, with Mike and I, we kind of bounce off each other because we're more prone to like interrupt each other. Yeah. Whereas you kind of like let me say my piece and you're like, yeah, you said good things. Yeah. You said the stuff. Good job. And whereas, you know, if I was doing this to Mike, he'd be like, but, and he'd like, you know, kind of like cut in and try to we'd interject on top of each other.
I've listened to your podcast.
Yeah, like you kind of know our dynamic, and so whenever we have things that come up, we're both kind of like bouncing off of each other and interrupting each other and stuff like that. And so we both kind of get our points across. And so it seems like from what you've been saying that you mostly agree. Was there anything you didn't agree with, or something you know that maybe I don't?
Not really. I think there was one study I wanted to mention, kind of near the beginning, that you kind of touched that would have been relevant back then that I didn't mention, but I also didn't really know exactly how to word it, but it was something along the lines of it was done by like Homeland Security. So this was a pretty, you know, credible,
reputable
research.
It wasn't just like some guy who did this.
And the place I'm finding trouble remembering or recalling is the group of people they did a study on, like who it was. But I think, just going off of my memory, so don't fully trust it. You can look up the study yourself if you want to. But I believe it was just people who had done violent actions and stuff like that, and only like it was no more than more of those people were into violent books than violent video games.
Really?
Yes.
So people that were like reading Tom Clancy and stuff were
more a higher percent of the people,
more like than the people playing Tom Clancy.
Exactly. The people just doing violent actions, a higher percentage of them were just reading violent books than were playing violent video games.
That's kind of weird. I expected you to say like maybe movies or something like that, or even music, but I'm like, books? Our literary crowd are the ones committing all the violent crimes?
Well, I mean, that was still only like 16% of the people read violent books. Everyone else was just, you know, violent because they wanted to be, I guess.
Yeah. That's kind of a weird stat. I did not expect that. But anyway, it kind of stopped me. You said it, and I'm just kind of thinking about that now. I'm trying to find like a logical connection between...
Surprised me too. That's why I thought I had to really add it in my paper.
Maybe because like they're more... Maybe it's like an imagination thing.
Stimulates you.
Yeah, because like
thinking.
when you're like playing a game or watching a movie, everything that you need is in front of you. Those are already visual. Whereas with books, you tend to build them up more in your head. Because it's just words, you tend to have that imagination, that your mind is more fired up when you're reading. You can tune it out a little bit less, you know?
Yeah.
You're going to have to be a little bit more in the book than you know, like if you're playing a game, sometimes you can be like just kind of there, you know? You can be a little bit stagnant but still play. And with movies, like you were saying, like with Sherlock, you can be like on your phone or something but still watching Sherlock. Whereas with a book, you know, you have to be reading the book.
Exactly.
And so maybe it's just something about like, I don't know, vivid imaginations or something like that. I don't know. I'd be interested in learning more about that.
I can send you the research article.
Yeah. Do you have it saved? Do you have it like tucked away somewhere?
Definitely have a link to it on my paper, and I still have access to that. So
I'd be interested in learning more about that, because that's a surprising stat to me.
It was to me too.
Yeah. But needless to say, based on you've done more like actual research. It sounds like, whereas me, like I said, mine's mostly just my personal stories and then like a few articles I've read over the years. But based on what I'm seeing and hearing, there's no real logical reason to think that video games begets violence in society. It's more of a way for people to explain it away.
Exactly. Brush
it under the rug. They're like, oh, this guy did this horrible thing, but he played video games. So,
Right.
It was bound to happen eventually. But yeah, I can't, I don't think there's, like I said, there's people playing both sides. You can find evidence to support your opinion either way on this topic, and millions of people have. It's a hot button topic, but I can't think of any solid evidence or personal experience that tells me that video games are directly connected to people's violent tendencies.
Exactly. I tried to be as open and unbiased as I could throughout my research, and everything I found was very middle road, but also slightly leaned towards them not causing violence.
Yeah. And I mean, it wouldn't surprise me. It's not even like I go into these articles like looking for a reason to be like, no, they're wrong. Video games don't make people violent. It's like, that wouldn't surprise me at all. Because, like I said, I've seen negative effects that video games can have on, like, children's brains and things like that.
Exactly.
Just as far as, like, an attention deficit and things like that.
Especially if you don't follow, like, the age restriction label, then you might have a problem.
Yeah, and so, I'm like, I can see firsthand the effects that video games can have on people. And so whenever, this kind of topic comes up, I'm like, well, it wouldn't really surprise me. But in everything I've seen and everything I've read, I can't find any evidence that makes me think that it's video games that cause people to lash out or have violent tendencies in society. Like you were saying, maybe slight bouts of aggression. They get mad at a game and so they have to take a break, or they get mad at a game and they're kind of ticked off for the evening or something like that, but...
Yeah, I've seen plenty of those, but I've never seen a video game make someone...
violent to the point of, like, mass destruction or any sort of societal scare.
Exactly.
Yeah. All right. Well, I think that was good. I mostly talked for a while,
but you covered like everything that I had done research on. Actually.
So unless you have anything to add, I think we're about good to wrap this up.
No, I think we're good.
All right. We did real quick for those of you that listen continuously. We saw Mike and I saw Shazam at a pre-release. We saw it like 2 or 3 weeks before it even came out, and we kept trying to schedule a time when we could sit down and do the review. Needless to say, we both really enjoyed it. If you've been following our social media, you can see kind of like the geeking out pictures and stuff saying, like, dude, this movie's amazing. And we were going to sit down and kind of go a little bit more in depth about what we liked and didn't like, and we haven't gotten a chance yet, just between work schedules and Mike not feeling well, and he was at a convention, I think either this weekend or next weekend. I talked to him a little bit this morning, and he said he was getting ready, so I don't know if that meant he was there and getting ready, or if he's like getting ready to leave for it. We do have a Shazam review incoming. It's just, we were excited to have it ahead. We were thinking this was going to be one of those that we could review before it was in theaters, and now we kind of missed that window. But it is incoming, and, slight spoiler, we both thought it was hilarious and awesome, and you should all go see it.
I plan on seeing it.
Yes, Garrett's going to see it soon, because if he doesn't, I'm going to be upset. But I won't do anything violent in society because of that. And I think, that just about, I think that wraps up everything as far as our upcoming content as well. We've got just a few more things we're going to talk about as far as like games and things, but Shazam was the big one. But anyway, I think that covers us for this week. we will be back soon. Let us know if you have any questions or anything you think we missed. You're, perfectly welcome to comment or, hit us up on any of our social media. We'd love to hear from you about if you agree or disagree or have further questions about this topic.
Oh, yeah.
I think Garrett and I would both be willing to discuss it and are happy to discuss it, really.
Feel free to talk with your friends about it, too.
Yeah, spread the word. Let us know if there's anything else that we need to cover for further this message or this word. And also let us know if you like having Garrett on. He's here often enough. We can have him on again if you'd like to hear more from him about his thoughts. But for this week, I think we're set to go, and we will see you soon. Bye.
Bye.